from the News Channel 5 network. This is OpenLine.
All right, welcome in, everyone. Rhori Johnston with you. I apologize in advance for the congestion and head cold. I know a lot of you are suffering right now with all the dry weather we've had, so bear with me. And if I need to cough, I'll just cover up the lob. Otherwise, feeling fine. And I hope you are too. Very interesting topic tonight, and a terrific guest who is well qualified to talk about the issue of post-incarceration issues. That's a fancy way of saying what kind of challenges do people face when they end their serving time in our prisons and being reintroduced to society. And we know there's a long list of them, but there's also a lot of help. All right, well, welcome in our guest, Tom Szaniawski. I got it right, Tom. I was practicing this during the break. Welcome in. Tom is a reentry attorney with the Legal Aid Society. Give us a little background. I know you came here from New York, right?
I did. I am a native New Yorker. I was in New York City for about 20 years before moving to Nashville 3 years ago. My background had been in commercial law, but I got involved with legal aid when the tornado came through and when COVID started. And I basically volunteered with legal aid for most of that year. And I came on last year as their staff community reentry attorney.
And obviously you liked it because you're sticking around, and it is a great nonprofit. Before we dive deeper into this topic tonight, give us a little bit, kind of a free little commercial here for the Legal Aid Society.
Sure. Legal Aid is the largest non-for-profit legal services provider. We provide legal services to folks who would not otherwise be able to afford a private attorney. We cover many practice areas. I obviously am in community reentry, but we cover an entire universe of topics from family law to tax law to consumer protection to health benefits and education, things like that.
Yep.
So really, we try to cater to the needs of the low-income residents of our neighborhoods.
And I should point out, Tom, and you already know this, that so many very talented attorneys out there volunteer their time and their skills, which is great to see. Obviously, with groups like the Legal Aid Society, and I know the Bar Association, they do Dial a Lawyer. Why do you think it's so important for people like you, with the skill set that you have, the education, the background, to, give something back in the community?
Sure. It's ironic. A lot of people think of New York as just this kind of big monolith of noise and craziness. But it is actually very much a constellation of neighborhoods.
Yep.
And I believe in neighborhoods. I love having a conversation with the gentleman who makes my breakfast. I like seeing communities work together. And here in Nashville, we have a lot of disparate communities, some of which unfortunately are very much on the low income side. One of our neighboring zip codes is actually the largest number of per capita incarcerated people in the country. And I, coming from a background in commercial law, I decided to get back and, use my experience and my skills to give something back to my new home in Nashville.
Yeah, because, first of all, it's so important to get legal help just to make sure that whatever you're doing it right and accurately within the law, but also because of, obviously, we know the cost that so many of these people who live in these disparate communities, they're barely able to, pay their basic basic needs, and hiring an attorney, it's just not even something that they could do. Exactly,
and that's kind of the fundamental mission of legal aid, is to kind of identify that segment. We have eligibility criteria that are pegged to the federal poverty level. So we tend to deal with folks who are no more than 125% over the federal poverty level, which amounts to about $16,000 a year for an individual right now. So these are the folks that we try to reach out to and try to educate, let them know that these services are out there, explain to them that based upon their situations, they may have legal avenues that they're not aware of.
Right.
And essentially try to provide the types of tools that help people get along with their lives.
And I should ask you too, we'll go back to the Legal Aid Society. You don't have to be a lawyer to volunteer your time there, right?
No, we have a large volunteer network that works with us. We also have a lot of folks on staff who are not attorneys, but who are administrative coordinators, who run various programs, who oversee kind of the backroom operations that are required to make us run. And we also do a lot of free legal clinics in various communities. And we typically have a lot of volunteers, whether they be law students or undergrad students or simply members of the community who want to get involved. And it takes a village, as they say. So we gladly draw on those resources.
All right, let's get in a little bit generically on the topic of post-incarceration issues. And I will mention, we've already got a caller on hold. Caller, hang in there. We appreciate you. 737+. Pick up the phone, call, and get a question in if you would like, or a comment. What does the public tend to misunderstand about the process of someone finishing a sentence and kind of getting back into society?
Sure. Well, obviously,
reentry, I guess they call it, right? Reentry.
Yeah. I like to call it community reentry.
Okay.
The folks in the business call it reentry, but I think community reentry is a little more accurate. Obviously, folks are dealing with emotional and psychological challenges in the first place, so they tend to be overwhelmed. But there are a lot of traps that people find themselves walking into. Somebody might leave incarceration and discover that they have hundreds, if not $1,000s of unpaid court costs that can cause various types of problems down the road. And I think our discussion will go in that direction. People lose their driver's licenses. People lose all kinds of rights like voting rights, right to hold public office, things along those lines. And people often don't know. People don't realize that if you've been arrested and released, you actually have a criminal record. If you go to court and are charged on a 3-count indictment and you're dismissed on all counts, you still have a criminal record. And not understanding that, unfortunately, pops up down the line when folks are looking for employment or housing. Typically, these folks, something like 9 out of 10 employers run background checks on their prospective employees. And, when one is trying to get on one's feet, after there's an initial transition period, folks obviously need employment, they need housing. And that's not a great time to realize that you have these unresolved legal issues kind of hanging over your head. So, unfortunately, the reality is that we are somewhat reactive in how we work. But that being said, we have a very large focus on community education and outreach so that we can go out, give people information, explain the potential pitfalls of their situation, and guide them and counsel them on what legal avenues are available to help them kind of move past these, institutional hurdles.
And I know there has been a move toward kind of better organizing the state programs, the nonprofit programs that are all out there, and kind of organizing and communicating, and also kind of looking at the actual policies that are in place. Because obviously, as a lawyer, you're following the law. And a lot of people say, well, a lot part of the law needs to change, and it has slowly. It's important because the recidivism rate in Tennessee is pretty high. And, in the long run, if we can keep more people out of prison, it's better for communities, and it's also saving taxpayer dollars.
Of course. And that's, again, that's speaking of those type of pitfalls that folks run into. One type of problem is, for example, if you have unpaid court costs that you're not aware of, the Department of Safety will revoke or suspend your license. So folks may get out and then they get to the point where they're trying to kind of get things moving. They don't have a driver's license and they have a criminal record. So they can't get to a job interview, let alone make it on a regular commute. I think we can all agree that Nashville, unfortunately, does not have the best public transportation. But essentially, the ugly cycle is that people get out, they feel stifled, they don't have a driver's license, they don't have a job, and they can very easily get pulled back into situations that contributed to the incarceration. So that speaks to the recidivism problem, among other things.
All right, we're going to dig even deeper with our guest tonight, Tom Szaniawski. I'm going to say it several times and get it right. He is with the Legal Aid Society. We'll learn more right after this.